This is my engine. It's got a 92 millimeter bore. It's 1835, and it has these manifolds for a dual port head that are made by a company called Son and Son, S-O-H-N and S-O-N, Son and Son, and they still exist, I think, but they don't make these. So these manifolds, the ports at the end, at the head, needed to be welded smaller and then filed to mate with the proper original gasket, the steel gasket. And then a little bit of clearancing to make sure I can get the spark plugs in and out. And then the linkage is for Weber's, and the holes need to be drilled for the plate I use studs on this, to mount them, but bolts are probably better because it's easier to make the gasket or something. I think there's a reason. I had a reason for using that bolts would have been better, but studs, they don't strip because they don't move. So that's the original Solex top, because I went through the trouble of the studs and making the gasket. And then the bottoms are fake. I didn't know what to do with this thing. I had two sets of late P2s, and I spent hours trying to make those things idle. And even if they did idle, the speed would be too high, regardless of where the timing was. You could retard it all you want. It wouldn't make any difference. So to the point where I actually filed the throttle flaps smaller so they'd close farther. And I even at some point plugged up one of the port holes with epoxy, JB weld, to see if there was too much air coming from there. I thought maybe that's it. I don't know what it is. I mean, I've studied the schematics on these things. I could not get it to idle. So then somebody said you should use Weber's, and he named a particular, maybe I got it backwards, but so I bought these Weber's, but as soon as I bought them, I knew it wasn't going to work because there's no adapter. There is a solution. You would have to weld the tops of the manifolds bigger to get the Weber to it, and then drill the stud holes and all that. You go and it's just not worth it, It was enough to have to weld the bottom of these things. And the way I looked at it, I was stuck with these manifolds, so I had to put these carbs on it. So I called a guy saying, is there an adapter for the Weber for these? He said, no, but I got these. And I got them really cheap, like a third of what they were selling, right before the tariffs. But anyway, I put them on and they both idle. The mixture screw responds as it should. Funnily, one side has black adjustment screws and the other one has white ones. So I think you can see it. See the white screw? Whatever, right? But it idles. So I haven't driven it yet, but I can't wait to see how they work. But it starts when it's cold. The left side idles, responds right away. But when it's warm, but the right doesn't. But after about 5 minutes or even less of idling, the right side, the mixture screws are responding. So I can't wait to drive it and get it good and hot. I'm thinking I might put bigger pilot jets in it, but I think I measured them already and they were 65s. But because I don't know how it's going to accelerate yet. It pops a little, but I've never let it run long enough to get really hot. To get it hot, you would want to drive it, around, And so, but it seems like it's going to be okay. Because I had these manifolds for years, and finally I'm ready to do this, and I got 4 carburetors, and you just couldn't make them work. And I know the rescue, well, that's a somebody told me that didn't exactly work out. So, but these are the later ones. I mean, the ones I had were the later ones, only identifiable by that retard pipe. I think it's retard. Maybe not. Who knows? I'm pretty sure it's retard. But anyway, so there it is. Those are those carburetors. And see, what I did was I had to cut this off and then weld it on again lower to get this down far enough so that this thing lined up real nice. I could go a little lower, maybe at 5 millimeters or 3 or something like that. There's not a lot of room there. Let's see. Right there. It's a terrible camera. I'm a lousy photographer for this. It's hard to do this and and do that. And then this is, what I did here was, I put a ball end on here. This is from a VW bus, like a 72 bus, 73 or something like that bus, dual carbs. And I welded a ball onto this. And I welded a ball onto this. This is, normally this has a bolt on. It has one of these, And by having a ball, it's a lot easier to take it on and off if you're adjusting them. The springs, they rubbed on this. I couldn't figure out why, so I had to just bend the spring. The German ones wouldn't rub. These things, I don't ever fold them, but to me they have to be there. The lock plate. You got to have, the lock plate is, it gives it a good mating. I don't think you need to fold it. I always unfold them, just tap it with a hammer on a vise, flatten it out, and then use it again as is. And it's a 009 and a real nice coil mounting. And then the coil wire that you buy is going to have not a solid core. And so I usually make one out of a spare old plug wire that's got a solid core. I don't like those. The new kits, well, the Bosch ones, they don't even make them anymore really for the VW, but this would come with a non-solid core, the coil wire. And you always want to convert it to solid core. And it has new heads. I think they're Autolinea, and the seats are cut by the book. If you look in the book for how to cut the seats on a Volkswagen from the factory instructions, that's how I cut the seats. And it's 40 over. It's got a 10 under crank, and it has almost brand new big bore kit, the 92s. They were like, the way you tell they look new and the rings don't wiggle at all. That's how a new piston is. There's zero ring wiggle. You have no ring wiggle, you've got a perfect piston, So, and the cylinders were fine. So they got new rings. They're I think they're Grant rings. So there it is. And it's got a new generator, a new voltage regulator, the solid state kind. And this is just an aluminum pulley. I like these because if you want to know if the pulley's true, this one will always be true. But the steel ones, the only way to know is you have to put it on and start the engine. I guess you can put it in a lathe too. Never tried it, but you could put it in a lathe and look at it. But the best way would be to put it on the car and see what happens, So these, if you put it on, it's going to be true. That's why aluminum is nice. And then this is not a new, it's a new muffler for a 74 bug with the massive castings at the head for the dual preheater pipe intake, and there might even be an outlet for EGR or something on it. I don't remember. I think it's for a 74. And I had to cut it all up to make it like a normal bug muffler at the flanges. That took a long time. These had to come off to do it. But you can take these off of a new one anyway to get this to line up better, and then weld it back together where it lines up with the heater box and this hole. I had to do it on this in order to cut up the flange so it would be, I wouldn't have to use that long stud they use on those 74 or 3 bug, whatever engine it was that they use these mufflers on. Otherwise, it's identical, and it's a Lystritz. Now, if you buy a brand new muffler today, it's going to be made by a company in Denmark. And if it's like a single port bug, the preheater pipes probably won't even line up with the muffler. They've gotten worse. These things will no way line up. You have to take them apart unless you don't really want to connect this properly. So it's got a nice German muffler on it. And I wish these guys Lystritz would start making a muffler again. I saw a VW I saw one of these on the Samba, and it said Lystritz, and it had a VW emblem on it. So that's the only time I've ever seen that. And he wants like $400 for it or something. And so this is the biggest problem right now with fixing all Volkswagens, is getting a muffler you can actually put on and connect this. Even this one, often these things are a little off, but you can get them on. But the other ones from that European country, they just don't fit. They're really terrible, The metal is softer significantly, but I think it's thicker, and they might be a little quieter. On a bus, I don't know if it's the first ones that came out for the bus tailpipe, it wasn't centered in the outlet cutout on the bus apron for a split window. So that will potentially burn the paint. And I think they fixed that because they had a new improved version. But, you know, that was years ago, like maybe 5 or 7 years ago. We've got a new improved version. Which one do you want? The parts people actually ask you that. And you go the new improved version. Well, the muffler that I just put on a car of one of those was just bought like 6 months ago. And it took all day to make that thing attach to the car. The preheaters wouldn't line up. I had to file on the heater, little metal covers, to make them, you know, mate with the pipe. I mean, you couldn't even put them on. It was insane. Had to bend and twist, and, you know, it's quite fatiguing. But see this one, this is a sheet metal that you can buy without the preheat holes. If you're going to do it, put 2 carbs on a car, you should use this. Because one time I had a bug, and it was a 67, and there was a gap between this rubber seal and the body. And the thing was overheating, and I was a kid. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I got done with the motor, and the oil light's on at idle. Why is this light on? You turn it off, the thing would keep running, you know, like it was dieseling. It was dieseling. That was because the cylinder head was so hot that even with the key off and no spark, right? Key off, no spark, there was still enough heat to ignite fuel. And so the engine just kept turning around. You know, I don't know how long it would do it, you know, 10 seconds or whatever. So I built it again, and it still did it. And I didn't know what to do with it. And finally I got some foam in a can that sprays out that looks like vomit, and when it dries it looks like styrofoam. I sprayed the whole perimeter around the engine with it, and the problem went away. So if you're wondering why I think this is a problem, having an opening here, or if there's a real reason to put this rubber thing here, it's because of that. On that car, all you could do, you could put your fingers through right here. That was it. Now, if you look up fluid dynamics, you're going to learn about why nobody can predict where this air is going to go. But on that car, the air that was right here was going right into the fan, and it was hot because it's next to the muffler and was making the engine overheat. Because once I did that, the oil light stopped doing that. It stopped running when the key was off. It was fine. So when you look at a Volkswagen engine and somebody says it's rebuilt and it's ready to go, and you look down inside of here and you can see the ground, there's something wrong with it. Like this, like you can see the ground. You can see the ground, you know what I mean? So that's why this is here, because a lot of these engines, they just don't last long because they're just thrown together. And that includes, like, not this, the seal doesn't mate right, this kind of thing, you know? So that's my engine. And it's real quiet, too. It's very quiet.